wanted to be coached hard. I wanted to be pushed. I wanted to be challenged. But if I was pushed and challenged with, for crap, I'm gone.
How comfortable were you with feeling vulnerable?
Oh, not at all prior to my stroke. I would avoid being vulnerable at all costs. I would avoid being dependent on anyone else. I always wanted to not have to be dependent on other people and be the one that everyone else could depend on. And so it was a very strange situation, to be in, where I needed to be dependent on others. And it was, because of my wife, that I was able to, sort of open up and be vulnerable and be comfortable with that. And and it was a great lesson to learn. A lot of physical therapy, you spend a lot of time looking at yourself in the mirror to look for symmetry. But what you can also see some days, what I would see is a person who is a shell of what I used to be. I have a walker, and this therapist is going to, take me around the hospital floor that I was on to, get started. And so we just decided to walk around. We're going to walk around this floor and kind of a circle, oval, and back to the room. And while I was doing it, he's coaching me because I'm dragging my foot. I'm not, I can't, he's coaching me on what to do, basically how to walk, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And as he's coaching me and I'm listening to what he's saying and I'm trying to then duplicate those things, I can feel myself immediately. And you wouldn't be able to see a difference, but I can feel the difference as I'm trying. No different than what coach was teaching me and, explaining to me on the track every day. Okay, Michael, you need to do this. Okay, got it. I can do that. Next rep, I'm doing that, And so that's what was happening. So I could feel that improvement. And when we got back around, completed this oval and back to the room, I looked back and I thought that was probably about 200 meters. And I looked and I was like, and that took me about 10 minutes. I recognized very early in the recovery process that this is familiar territory to me. When, you have to be able to recognize the tiniest bits of improvement to keep you going. When you have to, deal with, going through an entire day of training, really rigorous training, and feeling like you got worse, but still being able to then come back the next day, for more punishment and believe that it's going to get better. That's what I dealt with as an athlete. And that's certainly what I was dealing with as a stroke victim and trying to recover. There's no greater motivation than wanting to not have to be dependent on people and be a burden on people because you can't walk, and wanting to get back to, the sort of livelihood that I had before.
Michael never really challenged me, at least to my face he did, on what we were doing. But as the years went by, we would almost read each other's mind. He knew what we needed to be doing. I knew what he needed to be doing. But he never said, well, Coach, I don't think we ought to be doing that today. We need to be doing this. He didn't do that. He wasn't brought up that way. To this day, I use what he told me. We had a meeting each year on setting goals. And I said, Michael, here's a piece of paper and pencil. I want you to write me down your goals for the year. And he sat there and he didn't do anything. I said, well, you understand what I want? He said, yes, but what about the rest? I said, what do you mean about the rest? He said, well, don't I need to put it down how I'm going to reach those goals? And I said, yeah, that would be a good idea. He had gotten that from his daddy. His daddy had put him at the kitchen table for the start of each school year and asked Michael, what are your goals in school? Not only I want to make A's or B's, but how are you going to do that? And so that changed my philosophy on asking kids what their goals. You need to go beyond that. It's good to say, I want to run this or that, but if you don't have the goal on how to do it, it doesn't mean anything.
We had a great coach-athlete relationship. I think, it started with, coach, sort of teaching me, why we're doing the things we're doing. Because I was very inquisitive about the workouts, why we're doing the things that we're doing. And I realized, the better I understand what the objective of the training is, the better I understand the objective of this workout, the better I'm going to be able to execute it. And coach was always teaching me, and I would come to practice. And it got to a point where, he would test me, what do you think we're going to do today? And I would say, I think we're going to, but I think today you're going to have us doing this or that. And if I was wrong, he would explain to me, no, that we're not doing that because we're going to do this. And this is the reason why. So eventually, you know, I was able to understand, you know, kind of coach's philosophy, which I agreed with, you know, and it worked out really well. I could give also, I think coach understood that the better I understand this, the better feedback I can give him and the better he can coach me, because he can't he can't feel what I'm feeling, you know, on the track during the training session. So if I can provide the right feedback to him, the better he can coach me. So it was a great relationship from that standpoint. You know, I was fortunate to have a coach who challenged himself every day to be the best coach, you know, for himself, be the best coach for his athletes, and coached me hard because I wanted to be coached hard. I wanted to be pushed. I wanted to be challenged. But if I was pushed and challenged with, you know, with crap, I'm gone. I'm gonna go to somebody. You know, you can't just push me and coach me hard, you know, not knowing what you're doing. You know, and coach was always learning, always challenging himself, always asking me, you know, for feedback, which was important. So it was a great relationship from that standpoint. And yeah, you know, I mean, the things that, you know, we needed to do together, we understood that. Coach understood me as an athlete, and that I wasn't like every other athlete that he coached, and that I needed something different. And I think that was critical as well. And one of the best examples of that was when I was in college, I had a lot of injuries. So coach talked about that first year, you know, as a collegiate athlete in university, and, you know, finishing second in that race and breaking school records. I showed a tremendous amount of potential that first year. And, but then spent the next few years, you know, not really fully realizing that potential because of injuries. And I hated stretching and I hated strength training. I hated lifting weights. Didn't like it. I loved running. I would show up at the track ready to run, no problem. Whatever coach had for the workout that day, I'm ready to do it. I'll do more. But I didn't like stretching, didn't like strength training. And so, you know, before my final year at university, I knew that if I don't get through this last year injury-free and finally realize this potential, I'm not going to have this professional and Olympic career that I want. So I went to coach's office before the season started and said, Coach, you know, what can we do? And this was probably some of the best coaching I've ever heard of. Coach said, Michael, you know, I believe in your career. You know, I believe in you and I believe in your potential. I'll do anything I can do. So let me think about it. Think about what I can do, you know, and you think about it as well. And let's meet again in a couple of days and see what we come up with. See if we can't figure this out. I said, okay. And then just before I left, he said, hey, Michael, and let's think about also anything that maybe we haven't been doing that we can do. I said, okay. I didn't get back to my apartment before I realized exactly what he was talking about. Coach had been trying to get me to stretch and lift weights and give the same commitment to those things that I had been giving to running for 3 years. And I just didn't like doing it. It was some of the fundamental things that you have to do. And coach realized that, you know, Michael's probably one of those people who he needs to come to his own conclusion, because me telling him to do something he doesn't want to do ain't working. Coach realized that, yeah, you need to learn these lessons a different way, you know, and that was critical to my relationship with coach, and understanding that, you know, he understood who I am and how I need to be communicated with. And I'm not the kind of athlete where you're going to be able to just bark instructions at me, you know, as well. And so, yeah, it's been a great relationship. And I always said, you know, that, you know, when we win together, and when we lose, it's coach's fault. And I stand by that.
So if there was going to be one performance tip from each of you, maybe Coach, you go first. What would your tip be to me for everyday life?
To focus on the task at hand and then to accomplish it.
The single most impactful thing for me on my entire career as an athlete and as a person is really understanding myself as a person, understanding, you know, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what are my fears, what am I, why, the whys behind all of those things, understanding myself. So the better people understand themselves, the better you're able to navigate life